Hey guys, welcome back for another video. We got a good one prepared today. What we'll be doing is we'll be looking at our potential upset alert games we have coming up for week 12 of the 2024 college football season. But what we'll be doing is we'll be focusing on our top 25 potential upset alert picks. I have 5 of them right now. Tried to keep it to not too many, but we have 5 potential upset picks that might happen this week. I'm not saying that these teams will lose. It's just there's the potential there. There's the probability that they might drop one here, especially these teams that are deep in the conference play. A lot of teams competing for that final 12 to make the playoffs. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, please drop them below and I will respond. If you're a football fan, if you're a sports fan in general, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can follow along with us. The very first game we'll have that we'll be taking a look at is going to be on Fox at 12 p.m. We have the 4 and 5 Utah Utes playing number 17 Colorado Buffaloes coming in here at 7 and 2. Right now the Buffaloes have a 75% chance to win this game. They are 11.5-point favorites. The over-under is 46.5. You might be saying Utah has 0 chance to beat Colorado because Utah has no offense, and that is definitely true. With Cam Rising going down, they're basically rudderless at the quarterback position. They've been shuffling in 2 quarterbacks there. Neither of them have been able to consistently get first downs, punch the ball in. What they do have is they have a very good running game led by Bernard. He's closing in on 900 yards on the ground. They also have Singer closing in on 700 yards. And they have some weapons there, but this is a Kyle Whittingham team. You know they're going to have a top 20 defense. You know they're going to be disciplined. That's why Colorado is potentially on upset alert here, because Utah and their defense travels. They're going to be bringing it on the road to Colorado. How does Colorado respond when Utah's getting a lot of pressure on Shedeur Sanders? But Shedeur Sanders is obviously having a great season so far. The guy's closing in on a total of 2,900 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 picks. And for the team-wise, Utah, they're averaging 22.6, throwing for 225, running for 150, but it's that defense only giving up 17.1 points a game. If they're able to bottle up Shedeur Sanders, get a lot of pressure on him, we know that Colorado's offensive line at times is very shaky, very questionable. If they can pressure Shedeur Sanders, can they potentially get him into some turnovers, give their offense the short side of the field? All that Utah can hope to do is keep this game as a one-possession game down to the 4th quarter and hope they have the ball last. Right now, Colorado, they're averaging 32.4, throwing for 345. They're only running for 78. They got to get those rush numbers up so that they can open up the play action. But obviously, that's going to be easier said than done versus Utah, and they're giving up 22.6 points a game. This is not a bad defense by any means. They're much improved over last season. Look for Bernard to be the X factor here to carry Utah, but it's Colorado's wide receiver core. Hunter, Horn, Webster, multiple weapons that they can test you with vertically, but they're going to need time. The offensive line has to hold up to buy Shedeur Sanders some time. This is probably the best defense Colorado's played, probably since maybe the Nebraska game. Very talented defense, and they're physical. Colorado needs to be on upset alert here, but I still have Colorado winning this one, winning it 28-20. I do not have them covering the spread, but we will be going with the over. The next matchup we're going to be looking at is at 12 p.m. on ESPN. Number 20, Clemson, 7-2 versus 7-2 Pitt Panthers. You don't want to sleep on Pitt. This is actually a pretty decent team. They have an offense that can match Clemson blow for blow. Both of them have similar records. Both of them have had very similar seasons. Who's going to have the ball last? This game could easily turn into a shootout. Clemson has a 59.2% chance to win this game. They are 10-point favorites. The over-under is 53.5. Clemson's offense looks much better year 2 under Riley. Props to Dabo. He's been able to circle the wagons here, get this team back on track. However, they need more weapons at the wide receiver position so that they can vertically open up that passing game. They need better athletes at the wide receiver position. Not that they have bad athletes, but they're not on par with some of those top 10 teams. Not on par to where they've been in the past, the last decade. Clemson has a top 10 talented defense, but statistically, they're not top 10. It's probably the worst Clemson defense statistically in the last decade, but still, we know the talent's there. We know they can perform in the big moments. Looking at the quarterbacks here, you have Klubnik closing in on 2,300 yards, 24 touchdowns, 4 picks. Holstein, since he transferred over to Alabama with the new offensive scheme, Pitt can score with anyone in the ACC. Holstein closing in on 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. Clemson averages 37.7. They're throwing for 283. They're running for 199. They're averaging 500 yards of offense every game. They're giving up 23.1 points a game. Pitt is going to be able to test them. They will be able to keep up with them. They're averaging 36.7, throwing for 292, running for 151, and their defense is giving up 25.1. Clemson has Maffa closing in on 1,000 yards. They have Williams. Pitt has Reed, Mumfield. Obviously, Clemson is the more talented team right now, but I think the Panthers should be able to keep this game close. When you have a close game, a shootout game, it just could come down to that final possession. Who has the ball last? I think Clemson pulls this one off. If they win a close one, they win it 32-27, so we're going with the +10, and we're going with the over. The next matchup we're going to be looking at, the next potential upset pick at 7 p.m. on ESPN, 7-2 Arizona State versus number 16, 7-2 Kansas State. The battle of the 7-2 teams. Both of these teams have had good seasons so far. A lot of people pick Kansas State to potentially win the Big 12 this season. They're still there. Everything is still in front of both of these teams. They only have 2 losses. If they win out, they both have a shot to make the Big 12 championship. Just like Colorado, everything is still in front of you. They still have a shot. But you need to take every game by game. You have to win out from this point forward in the season. Looking at Arizona State, they're going to be led by Levitt. He's closing in on 1,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, 4 picks. And Kansas State has Avery Johnson, the highest recruited player in Kansas State history. He's closing in on 1,900 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks. But it's the fact that he has that extra mobility. This guy can run, and he can run with purpose. For Arizona State, they're averaging 31.6. They're throwing for 214. They're running for 198, and their defense is giving up 23.8. For Kansas State, they average 31.2. Very balanced there. They throw for 223. They're running for 208. Their defense giving up 21.7. If you want to beat Kansas State, the main way to beat them, to stay competitive with them, is to go vertical. Be pushing the ball down the field. They're giving up 254 passing yards every game. There will be targets there down the field. Where Kansas State succeeds is their rush defense. They're only giving up 99 yards per game. You can throw all over Kansas State, but it is hard to run on them. But that's where Arizona State's X factor comes in. If Scadaboo plays this weekend, he completely changes the outcome of this game. He's closing in on 1,100 yards on the ground. That is a massive. That's a top 10 statistical running back. He could be the game changer for the Sun Devils if he plays. If he plays, this game could be close, could easily turn into an upset. Right now, Kansas State 8.5-point favorites. The over-under is 50.5. But Kansas State also has their own X factor. They have DJ Giddens. He's 5 yards shy of 1,000. This guy's a top 10 running back, a top 5 running back in all of college football. He's running downhill. They're going to feed him, and Arizona State's going to seek to feed Scadaboo. It's strength on strength. Which one of these running backs is going to succeed the most? Which offensive line is going to get the most pressure, open up the most holes for them? But Kansas State also has Jace Brown. Obviously, he's their deep target. Whenever they need a deep pass, he always steps up every single time. He's closing in on 700 yards. I have Kansas State pulling out the win here, winning this one 28-24. We're going with the +8.5, and we're just barely going with the over. The next game we're going to look at is probably the game of the weekend, coming up at 7:30 p.m. on ABC. Number 7 Tennessee 8-1 versus number 12 Georgia Bulldogs 7-2. This is a massive SEC matchup. There's playoff implications here. There's SEC championship implications. Right now, the Bulldogs have a 61.7% chance to win this game. They are 10-point favorites. The over-under here is 48.5. This is going to be a pretty interesting game because obviously both of these teams need this win a lot. Tennessee, the big question for them, the big point that we need to keep our eye on is Nico going to be playing at the quarterback position? Yes, he hasn't had the best season since they got into SEC play. Played better last weekend. However, since they've got in the SEC play, whenever he gets pressured, he starts to overthrow and underthrow wide open wide receivers. He's closing in on 1,900 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. But for Georgia, they have issues the other way. Carson Beck is just having a sloppy season so far. A lot of turnovers. He's closing on 2,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 12 picks. But he also has 8 fumbles so far this season. Way too many turnovers. Georgia's become way too pass happy. This is a team that used to live on their offensive line, running the ball, playing solid defense. Defense is good this season, but it's not great. Their offensive line is not getting pushed at the line of scrimmage, and they're not running the ball. Right now, they're in the hundreds in rushing yards per game. A team that has the number 2 overall roster, they should not be ranked that low when it comes to running the ball. Obviously, the talent level's there. They need to get some things figured out, especially on the offensive scheme. They need to be able to get push at the line of scrimmage. Georgia should be able to run on anyone, but Tennessee's defense is going to make that really difficult this week. And obviously, Tennessee comes in, they're averaging 37.6. They're throwing for 245. They're running for 235. The most balanced team in all of college football. They're only giving up 12.6 points a game, only 100 rushing yards per game. This is a top 10, a top 5 defense. They're top 10 in quarterback carries. They're top 10 in sacks. Playing a quarterback who, when he's been pressured this season, is throwing picks and making bad decisions. Can Tennessee continue that pressure on Carson Beck? And will Carson Beck continue to cave so far this season under that pressure? Georgia hasn't been able to establish the run. It's going to be really hard to establish that versus a legitimate top 10 defensive line with Tennessee. Georgia comes in, they're averaging 30.6. That's not awful. That's probably the worst offense they've had, though, in the last decade. They're throwing for 298. They're only running for 124. They're giving up 18.4 points per game, which is a top 25 defense, but Georgia's used to being sub 15, sub 12 points per game. Now they're a little elevated, but it makes sense because their offense is giving up turnovers. They're giving up turnovers on their own side of the field, so they're giving up points that they really shouldn't be giving up. Tennessee, very talented playmakers. They have Josh Heupel calling plays, one of the best offensive minds in all of college football. Right now, they have Sampson, the leading rusher in all of college football, closing in the SEC. He's closing in on 1,200 yards. He already has 20 touchdowns. And they have Thornton Jr., Squirrel White, multiple weapons, multiple ways they can beat you. And for Georgia, they have Etienne, they have Smith, but they need someone to step up at the running back position, someone who's going to take reign of this team and dominate at the line of scrimmage. Georgia's the favorite here, a very large favorite versus Tennessee, who's technically ranked higher. I have Tennessee pulling the upset. I have Tennessee winning this one 27-20, going with the plus 10, going with the under here. I picked Georgia to lose last weekend to Ole Miss. I was not surprised by that loss at all. It's kind of a stretch picking them to lose back-to-back weekends, but I just haven't seen anything out of Georgia to make me think otherwise. But maybe they'll show us this weekend. Georgia plays up or down to their level of competition so far this season. We have that first half versus Texas, and then we have that game versus Ole Miss. Which version of Georgia shows up this weekend? That's why they're on upset alert. The next game we're looking at is a late one at 10:15 p.m. on ESPN. 3-6 Kansas versus number 6 undefeated 9-0 BYU. What a season they're having. They have a 60.9% chance to win this game. They are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 56.5. The reason BYU's on upset alert is because Kansas is actually starting to play like Kansas right now. They were heavy favorites. A lot of people picking them to compete in the Big 12, potentially win the Big 12 this season. Daniels was finally healthy. He came out the gate just playing really bad. A lot of turnovers, a lot of picks, but the last 3 to 4 games, he's gotten things back on track. They have Neal at the running back position. He's a top 15 running back in college football. Right now, he's closing in on 900 rushing yards. We know that he is going to consistently do what he does. As long as Daniels plays a clean game, they definitely have a chance to win this game. They are a pretty good offense. Right now, Daniels closing in on 1,900 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 picks. For BYU, they have Rhett Slaff. He can run. He can throw. He's closing in on 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. The big thing for BYU is they live off the turnovers. That's what generates a lot of their offense. Kansas gives up a lot of turnovers. If Kansas plays the way they played the first half of this season, BYU is going to feast. They're going to get turnovers. They're going to get the short field. They're going to score. If Kansas plays a clean game, how does BYU respond? Now you're playing an offense that isn't turning the ball over, so you have to generate your own offense. You have to go the length of the field. How does BYU pick that up? Right now, Kansas, they're averaging 31.7, throwing for 215, running for 214, very balanced, giving up 25.9, and for BYU, they're averaging 33.7. Like I said, a lot of that is off turnovers. They're throwing for 247, they're running for 163. Their defense, very solid this season, giving up 19.8 points per game. They have Martin, they have Roberts, and Kansas, Daniels, Neal, and Graham. This game's going to be close. I think it will be decided in the fourth quarter. To me, outside of the Georgia game, this is the next likely upset game here. But I still have BYU pulling it off in the fourth quarter. They win this one 28-24. They cover the spread. We're going with the under. But this is a game you definitely have to watch. There's a massive upset potential here. So that's our upset potential picks for Week 12 of the 2024 college football season. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe. If you have any comments about these games or anything else, please drop them below and I will respond. Thank you.